In 1979, a giant inflatable bee named Horatio, accompanied by dozens of children, steamed through a forest attached to a train. No, this wasn't a bad acid trip. It was a commercial for bumblebee tuna, and the catchy little rhyme that accompanied it went a little like this.
Yum, yum, bumblebee, bumblebee tuna. I love a sandwich made with bumblebee. Bumblebee!
Over 40 years later, I no longer eat tuna, but whenever I see a bee, this jingle automatically starts playing in my head, like a broken jukebox I can't turn off. I never quite understood the connection between bees and tuna fish. But I am beginning to understand the importance of these amazing little yellow and black winged heroes. Maybe you thought that their only purpose was to muck up your windshield on long road trips. But pollinators, which include domesticated honeybees, wild bees, butterflies, ladybugs, moths, wasps, flies, beetles, ants, bats, and birds are some of the most important creatures on the planet. Not only do they pollinate the foods we eat, but they also pollinate trees, plants, and flowers that clean the air, stabilize the soil, sequester CO2, and provide food for wildlife. Stop to think about that for a second. These creatures we think so little about that we swat with our hands, crush under our feet, and poison with pesticides, are responsible for our food, trees, plants, soil, air, and even clean water which is filtered through the soil. Without them, our world collapses. According to the FAO, about 75% of our food depends on pollinators based on the number of crops. And 35% of our food depends on them based on tonnage, which means 1 out of 3 bites of food you eat depends on a pollinator. Knowing the vital role that insects play in sustaining our ecosystem, you would think that we would do a better job at taking care of them, but you'd be wrong. Climate change, habitat destruction, and pesticides are killing our pollinators and destroying our food and ecosystems. When people think about bees, they think about Apis mellifera, or the European honeybee. But there are over 20,000 species of bees. And it is not domestic honeybees that are in danger of going extinct, because they are cared for by human beekeepers and receive veterinary care. Rather, it is the wild solitary bees that don't produce honey, like the bumblebee, that are most under threat. These are in grave danger of disappearing, and estimates say that we've already lost about 25% of our wild bee population. And over 40% of insect species are declining, and 1/3 are endangered. Insects are disappearing 8 times faster than mammals, birds, and reptiles. Their numbers are falling by 2.5% per year, suggesting that they could vanish within the century. Both wild and domesticated pollinators are important. Domesticated honeybees are good general pollinators, but wild pollinators evolved a relationship with specific plants over centuries. For example, squash bees pollinate early in the morning when the flowers are open and the honeybees are sleeping. And the flowers of tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplants need a loud vibrating bee like the bumblebee to get them to release their pollen, something that honeybees can't provide. In general, wild bees are about 5 times better pollinators than honeybees. But sometimes they are substantially better. For example, to pollinate a hectare of apples, it only takes a few hundred of Osmia cornuta, whereas it would take tens of thousands of honeybees to do the same job. Many of our crops require pollination by several species, which leads to greater yields. Alarmingly, as we see a decline in wild bee populations, we are also seeing a decline in crop yields of cherries, blueberries, and apples in North America. Likewise, we've lost about 3 billion birds in the US and Canada since 1970, or about 30% of the North American population. Of the birds on the planet left today, 70% of them are chickens or other poultry, and only 30% are wild. Part of the problem is that monoculture is leading to the destruction of wild pollinator habitats. How we use domesticated bees is also part of the problem. According to the American Beekeeping Federation, 2/3 of the 2.7 million bee colonies are used for pollination, many of which end up in almond fields because there are few wild pollinators left there. When domesticated bees are introduced into wild habitats, they spread disease and consume resources, leaving none for the wild species. The value of the crops that pollinators help us to produce is estimated to be worth between $235 to $577 billion annually in the US alone. Then there is the clean air, water, plants, trees, and soil that they provide us with, which are priceless. So, what can you do? Number 1, buy organic food. You can find this at your local farmer's market. 2, eat less meat and dairy. Both industries are a leading cause of deforestation and habitat loss. 3, eat less junk food, which is produced using industrial agriculture, are made from monocrops and heavy fertilizer and pesticide use. Number 4, give to indigenous groups that preserve the land and biodiversity, like pachamama.org. 5, fight climate change by donating to givinggreen.earth. 6, stop spraying pesticides. If you are spraying for mosquitoes, you can use BTI, a naturally occurring bacteria, instead. If you are spraying to protect your garden, you can make toxic-free pesticides from chilies and garlic. Number 7, rewild your lawn and garden. This will give pollinators a place to visit and food to eat. Number 8, plant native wildflowers. Make sure you are planting ones native to your area, otherwise invasive species can take over. If you don't know, check with your local gardening center. 9, buy or build wild bee hotels. These will attract pollinators to your gardens and give them a place to lay their eggs. So what is the connection between bumblebees and tuna? It's simple. Bumblebees pollinate trees, plants, and flowers. Without them, there's no structure to the soil. The soil is important for filtering water that ends up washing into the ocean. So bumblebees help clean the water that the tuna swim in. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please visit me at www.palmeroyung.me for more videos, articles, and infographics.